5 reasons why you should be listening to your child read aloud. Hi, I'm Rebecca with the Parent Teacher Bridge, where you can find the ideas and resources you need to empower you to become your child's most influential teacher. And today I'm talking about the importance of letting your child read aloud to you. So stick around, be sure to click like and subscribe, and let's get started. Why should you continue to allow your child to read aloud to you even after he or she has become an independent reader? Well, that's something that kind of trails off from time to time, and I see sometimes parents of even younger children, first, second grade age range, just allow their child to go off and read by themselves. While there is nothing wrong with that, you should continue to allow your child to read aloud to you. It involves so many opportunities for you to see what your child's strengths and weaknesses are, and gives you plenty of opportunities to have some learning conversations and just overall to bond with your child. Well, I tutor, and I come across parents that have a need for their children to improve in reading. Now, that usually comes about because a teacher has said, hey, your child is below reading level. But sometimes it's also because the parent just kind of knows something's not clicking just right. Sometimes it's also because that the child does not have an interest in reading. They find reading particularly daunting and draining. Overall, what I find is that children in 3rd, 4th, and even 5th grade have completely stopped reading aloud to anyone. Usually by 3rd grade, a child no longer meets one-on-one with the teacher and does some reading level test. It's just assumed that they should be able to independently read. And so if you're sending your child to school and they're in a classroom full of about 20 students, you can imagine how little time a teacher would have to listen to your child read aloud. And even if you are from a large family and you have 4 or 5 children, you can still find time to allow that child to read to you easier than what it is at school reading for the teacher. Oftentimes at schools, the focus is really on grades, making a grade. How well did you do on that worksheet? How well are you going to do on the state test? And frankly, if you're not dealing with some of these basic reading skills and decoding skills, figuring out an unknown word when you come across it rather than guessing it, your child is just going to do worse on those tests anyway. So it's best to just go back to the basics. So with all of that said, how will it help if you take the time to allow your child to read aloud to you? Number 1, you will notice what words or word parts that your child is struggling to read or decode. That simply means sounding the word out. You are going to see where a struggle is. The more you do this and listen to your own child read to you, the more you're going to see a trend. Does your child not realize that sometimes the letter C can make a soft sound where it sounds like an S? Does your child even know the rule for that? You will be able to notice some of these things as you build this time into your day. Without some sort of accountability where your child knows that, yes, you will be listening to them, they can just go off to another room with their book and look at it and daydream for a while and never really read. Or even if they have the best intentions of reading, if they are getting a word wrong, who is there to tell them that that word isn't right and they need to go back and look at it again? Now, these errors that I've mentioned all affect a child's reading comprehension. You know, I was speaking to a mom the other day and she was talking about maybe her child's ADHD affected the comprehension. It might. But first and foremost, I asked the mother, well, how is your daughter at decoding or sounding out a word? And she said, well, she struggles with that. And I said, well, that's the number 1 thing I would look at as far as reading comprehension, because if you're struggling to sound out words and you're using all the brain power to do that, you don't have as much room left in your brain to sit there and use some comprehension strategies like making connections to your real life or even making mental images as you read a page. Number 2, When you allow your child to read aloud to you, it gives you an opportunity to ask some general questions about what they have read, to test their reading comprehension to see, can they remember certain things that occurred? Can they remember what was in order? Do they understand what a certain word or a phrase means in the story? Without listening to your child read aloud, it's hard to kind of ask those questions because really we don't necessarily read every single thing our children read. But if they're reading aloud to you, you have heard everything they've read, or maybe you're sitting beside your child and you are seeing the text on the page. Now, if you need ideas on what sorts of things should you ask or what sorts of things that you should say while your child is reading aloud to you, be sure to check out my Reading Handy Helper. It's a read aloud handy helper to be exact, and I will leave a link for that in the description below. It's going to help you build up that time that you have together with your child when you are allowing your child to read and you're still checking for comprehension. Now, here's an extra bonus. When your child is reading aloud to you, it can give you opportunities to discuss with your child certain things that characters in the story went through, to be able to build some empathy and connect with some of the feelings that the character in the story had, and just some overall bonding time. You start to have inside jokes together. You can ask questions like, what would you have done if you were in that scenario? Number 3, you can provide opportunities for learning new vocabulary. Maybe your child is reading aloud to you and they come across a word they've never seen before. Maybe it's even a word they haven't heard before, or a word with a weird spelling, and they don't know how to pronounce it. They mispronounce it. That gives you an opportunity to talk about the meaning of that word, how to say that word, and maybe give example sentences on how else that word could be used. We came across the word piety the other day when we were reading with my 13-year-old. And he had never encountered that word before. So we talked about what the word piety means and what the word pious means, and I was able to use them both in an example sentence. And that is so much more valuable. My children have pretty decent vocabularies, but I can tell you now, they have never really had to take a vocabulary test. They have never really sat there and looked up vocabulary words in a glossary over and over and over. Just by that conversation and reading aloud, it has exposed them to wonderful new words. The 4th benefit in allowing your child to read aloud to you is that they are going to become much more confident and fluent in their reading. Now, we all know that's true for our 1st and 2nd grade children that are beginning readers, but it is also true for our older children as they are reading more and more nonfiction books that have more and more multisyllable words or special jargon related to whatever topic that it is about. Now, maybe for your older child, you can't have them read aloud to you every single day. That's fine. That's normal. Okay. If you have a struggling reader, they need to be reading aloud to you some every single day. But if your child is not a struggling reader and they're a little bit older, you can go several days in between, check in on them once a week, just have them read aloud to you periodically for 5 or 10 minutes. And by the way, I'm not only talking to homeschool families when I say this. If your child goes to a school and they are working on some homework, come nearby them and ask them, hey, could you read that paragraph aloud for me? And they may not like it, but you're in charge, you're the parent, and you have the right to check in and just see how they're doing. Number 5, by allowing your child to read aloud to you, you're providing an opportunity for your child to perhaps explore a new genre that they didn't know that they liked. I can remember growing up, I loved reading the Little House on the Prairie books, but I reached a point at where I had read all of those and I didn't really know where to go next. And so through that period of time in middle school, I didn't read as much. I didn't, know what all books were out there. I didn't get to purchase books all that often. And the school libraries and even our small town library was incredibly limited in the amount of books that it had. So I went through a dry spell of reading because I couldn't find one that I liked. However, as I entered into 9th grade and I started reading some Jane Austen books, I liked those. And so it gave me something new, a new author, a new genre to kind of dig into and enjoy reading again. So your child may not know everything that they like about reading because they maybe haven't tried all the different genres there are. Now, did I miss anything? How many of you still allow your child to read aloud to you? Comment below. Something that I have done recently with my children is follow a read through the Bible plan. Now, most of the time it's me reading aloud to them, but we have had some days where we just portion out different chapters or different verses to different kids and allow them that time to read aloud and build all those skills that I've just shared with you. Don't forget to check out my Read Aloud Handy Helper. I'm including that below. If you do have a struggling reader, you might want to check out my 5 quick tips to immediately help your struggling reader. And for those of you that are interested, I have courses available on my website. Things that might help your child learn their ABCs, things that might help your child learn to read better. Be sure to check those out as well. Don't forget to click like and subscribe. And remember, parents, you are your child's most influential teacher.